Well, good morning and welcome back to Smart Response Training. Today we're going to be reviewing and evaluating results. I'm just going to use my page forward button in my Windows sidebar to help me move along. The objective of this session is for you to be able to find results in details in the Teacher Tool Gradebook. What that entails, or I should say, why do we need to find it? Why do we need to go back and evaluate our assessment? Well, as teachers, we know once we have the results, it's not it. We have to go back and decide, based on the assessment, did my class know what I needed them to know? Was the assessment valid? Meaning, did I put forth useful questions? And lastly, were my students successful? And so that way, the ones that are not successful, I can go back and figure out what are the response to intervention methods that I need to use to improve them. So what we're going to be focusing on are 4 different areas. We're first going to look at how to sort the gradebook results. Then we're going to look at the properties, performance, and result areas for students. And then the same areas, property, performance, and results, as well as questions for the assessments. And then lastly, I'm going to show you how to change answers as well as change student results in the gradebook. Okay. What I would like you to do now is to open up the Mrs. T teacher file that I gave you on the flash drive earlier in our training this week. So what we need to do is go down to the Windows Interactive section, and we want to hit on the response icon and choose Teacher Tools. It's the one with the pencils. And that's going to open your gradebook. For you right now, it's probably opened the gradebook that you created in our last module. Well, I'm going to need you to change that to Mrs. T's gradebook. So over on the top left-hand side, so anything else, we see File. So we want to choose File, Open, and then in my case, my Mrs. T's gradebook is located in my Documents section. So if I went down to the bottom here, I would see it in my Documents section. You need to locate it on your computer or your flash drive and bring it up. Okay. But my Mrs. T's gradebook is open. Okay. So right now, I'm just on the home page to my gradebook. It lists my different classes over here on the left-hand side. So I have Science A, Science B, and anonymous mode. We always have an anonymous mode. And we've gone through these steps previously, how to add classes and things like that. Right now we're going to focus on evaluating our results. So I'm going to go ahead and in my side tab over here, I'm going to choose one of my classes. I'm going to choose Science A. And it brings me to this class's home page. On this home page, I can see Start Class, which means I'm not currently I don't currently have that class open for assessment, so I could start the class if I needed to, or I could stop the class if I needed to. Okay? We should notice these 3 tabs up at the top, Home, Students, and Assessment. These are going to be where I'm going to focus my attention today in terms of looking at the results in my gradebook. So let's go ahead and move to Students. Now one thing I do want you to take note of, on the top right-hand side, you have something, a little eyeball up there. It says Privacy Off On, okay? And what that allows us to do is if I was sitting at my desk and I had my gradebook open, I can put my privacy on, so now my students' confidentiality is protected so that no one else can access their numeric grades. When I need to work on the gradebook, I can pick privacy and put it off so that all of their information is accessible to me, okay? Now we can see it's all broken up into columns. The default in your student assessment is that it's going to sort by last name. See the little triangle up there? That's the default. What this program allows me to do is I can actually change my sort method if I want to. The way I can do that, these top tabs, if I hit on any of the top tabs in the column, it will alter my sort method. So I've just hit Student ID, so I've sorted the student IDs from lowest numeric to highest numeric. If I wanted to do average for the class, I can hit average. So there's all different things I can do here to group my students either by their ID, if I need random grouping, their last name, their average, etc. Okay? Now let's look at an individual student. I'm just going to pick V Crab. It's going to bring up his individual performance results and properties window. I start out on the properties window, and I can see it just gives me the general information about this student. It's giving me his ID, basically all the information that I imported or I entered when I brought students into the class. It also gives me this extra section called tags. Tags is a place I can make special notes on the student. Here I've noted that he is in fact a male student, but for example, if he was a special ed student and I want to list an IEP or a 504 to make sure that I was meeting his needs, I can do it in that location. The second tab is performance, where it allows me to look at his performance relative to the other students in the class, or the class average. So I have this great graphic here, and I can see that for this particular student, he seems to be performing well when the class doesn't do that well, and he seems to perform bad when the class does bad, so he's a little bit of an opposite. The dots here throughout the line graph represent different assessments. So if I hit on one of those dots, it's actually going to bring up the assessment information. It's going to give me its name, the date it was given, and the score. The orange or red, as you can see, represents the class average, and the blue represents the student average. So with the student as well, I can click on one of his points, and it will bring up the information on him specifically. Okay. That's just one way to look at student performance. The next way is the next tab. We're going to move to results, and I can actually see all the individual results for this student. So it lists every assessment, the other information I put in on that assessment, as well as his mark. This is also a location where I can change the student's grade if necessary. As we know, we have students that get called out of class. Maybe they just weren't successful on that assessment and you wanted to give them an opportunity to do it over. All you have to do is choose the assignment that you're interested in, double click in the mark section, and if we bring up the keyboard here, currently he had a mark of 2. I want to change that to a mark of 4. And now his grade has changed to a 4 out of 5. And it automatically synchronized with the information up top and changed his grade up top as well. And that's what's great about this notebook. I actually entered down the other one. When I want to get out, I can just click on the page and it will bring me out of any changes that I need to make. That is just the basic student information. We can also see student information along with assessment information in the Assessments tab. So I'm going to move over. At the very top, I'm going to go over to the Assessments tab. And this lists every assessment I've given so far. And again, I can sort this information by clicking on the top of the column. So I'm going to sort it by the title of the assessment. The default is actually by the date and time. So usually it's going to show you from furthest away to most current. So you can hit that if you wanted to change it around. And this is the overall class assessment. If I want to get further into the details, I can choose one of those assessments. And again, it's going to open a window down below that gives me properties, performance results, and then an additional tab now is questions. So again, properties is the general information entered into the system about this assessment. Now, most of the time, this information you're going to enter in that title page that you put together when you put together a set of questions for student response, and it will actually come in automatically from that title page. But if you wanted to add information, this is the place you would go. Second is performance. Here we're going to have a bar chart rather than a line graph showing us our student performance as an overall class. So we can see for question 1, they had about 17 people pass, about 4 or 5 failed, and 3 skipped. Now if you need the information immediately and you don't want to break down the bar graph all by yourself, I'm a nerdy math teacher, so that doesn't bother me. You can simply click on the bar and it will actually bring up what number question you're on and how many did what. Let's move over to results. This is just another way to look at the results. It's actually giving you each student and what their score was. Again, if you need to change a student's score, you'd be able to double click in this mark over here after choosing a student. You double click and change their mark. And lastly is the question. Now, I know that all my students think I'm perfect, right? As yours probably do. But sometimes when you're entering your information, you do get something wrong. So when you go to the question, if you choose a question, it's going to give you the additional information you had entered on it. What available responses there were, whether it was multiple choice, yes and no, what the student answers were for each response, and lastly, if you need to correct something. The current stars are nice because it allows you to see whether or not they all picked the distractor answer, and the correct one over here, if you made a mistake, which never happens, I'm sure, you could actually change your answer. By changing your answer here, it will also change the grades here and flow over to the student results. Well, that has been a lot of information. So now it's time for you guys to play with it. I'm going to go back to the presentation, and I'd like you to have out your clickers. Make sure you're in anonymous mode, and I want you to explore the gradebook by answering the following questions. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to open my response tab on the side. I can also open it up here if I need to. And I'm going to choose to start my assessment. Okay? And I want you to go ahead and answer the questions. Again, you guys learned this previously. If you wanted to look at individual results, you can see the bar graph here. Okay. All the students have answered. So we're going to move on. Good, all the students have answered. So we're going to move on. Okay, when all the students have answered, again, I'm going to move on. And at any time I want to get rid of my results, I just hit hide. Okay, and when your student's finished, make sure you ask them to finish the assessment. And you can go right in, if you're in progress, you can go ahead and stop your assessment there. Okay? So if we were wanting to look now back at our gradebook, these results would be in there, and we'd be able to do the same types of sorts and qualifications on the students and the results as we just looked through. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great day.